He lives a boring life, but when he has a midlife crisis and adopts a bird as a pet, it turns out to be a powerful mage from another world, and it gives him the ability to use magic. The story begins with Sasaki getting ready for work. He takes out the trash, and a college girl greets him. He goes to work, and his colleague Kohai comes up to him, wanting to clarify some doubts about his report. Sasaki offers to do the task for him, so they can work more efficiently, and Kohai can focus on other things. Meanwhile, a girl talks about the new cat she adopted, and this catches Sasaki's attention, so he glances over. They watch cat videos on the internet, which delights Sasaki, but he tells Kohai that he prefers dogs. Kohai invites him to eat something after they leave work, but Sasaki declines, since his budget is tight, but hopes that Kohai calls him again. When he returns home, the college girl greets him again, and he spends his evening watching cute pet videos. The next day, he goes to a pet shop, where he checks the cats and dogs, but is surprised to learn how expensive they are. He complains about his low salary, which prevents him from having the pet of his dreams. As he explores the place, Sasaki finds a bird on sale, thinking it looks adorable, so he decides to take it home. He puts it in a cage, enchanted by its cuteness, and he notes how he has been feeling lonely with his 40th birthday approaching, so he thinks he made a great choice adopting a pet. He remembers that he needs to name it, but before he could decide by himself, the bird says his name is Piercarlo, and he introduces himself as a great star sage, saying he comes from another world. Sasaki is surprised to hear this, but he knows that some birds tend to talk. He thinks a little, and decides to call him Peeps, because it sounds cute, but it doesn't seem to excite the bird. Sasaki knows that birds climb on their owner's hand as they gain trust, wondering if he could do that. He wonders if they can also hold conversations, thinking it's almost like talking to a human. Testing his skills, he asks Peeps what he would like to eat, and the bird says that he wants Kobe beef, since the store owner said it's the best food in the world. Even though he wants to give the best to his pet, Sasaki says he can't afford to serve him that dish, but Peeps tells him that he just needs to earn more. Peeps suddenly starts a monologue about his life, saying he was expelled from his world, while Sasaki listens attentively. Peeps wonders what he could do to return to his original world, but notes that he's unsure what to do when he gets back, so he decides to live in the way he thinks is best. Hearing this, Sasaki realizes that Peeps has come to a rational conclusion. Seeing himself as a corporate slave, he starts to appreciate the idea of freedom more, and realizes that no one should waste time following the pace of others. Peeps tells Sasaki to cooperate with him, saying he will no longer have problems getting money if he decides to help. So he agrees to collaborate with Peeps, who decides to share his powers with him. He doesn't understand what's happening, but he decides to see it through to the end. Sasaki releases him, and Peeps walks up to his shoulder. Peeps says that he can now use Sasaki's body as a vessel to exert his power, which is better than the body of a small bird. Peeps suddenly teleports them to another world, which is the one he used to live in, before being reborn as a bird, and they reach a peaceful city called Batrium. The next day, he returns to work, and Kohai starts a conversation with him, wondering how he managed to arrive so early, since all the trains were delayed. He asks Sasaki to talk later, and during the break, Kohai tells Sasaki that he's going to start his own business, and wants him to join his project, since it would be great to have someone experienced like him. But he says that he needs time to think about it, saying his life is busy now that he started raising a pet, and Kohai is surprised to hear this. Sasaki begins to remember when he was in Peeps' world, and how his life changed after seeing it. We learn that the teleportation spell helps him get to work earlier, and without that stress, he can focus on his project with Peeps, conducting business between the two worlds. He stops at a supermarket to buy his items, and upon arriving home, he encounters the same girl for the third time. She mentions that her mother brought a friend, and he notices that she's hungry, so he gives her a chocolate bar. Moments later, Sasaki goes to Peeps' world to sell his products to the nobles, and upon collecting their gold coins, he realizes that they're worth 400 million yen. The man becomes curious, asking him where he gets his products, but Sasaki says he must keep it a secret, and promises exclusivity of his products, hoping they can work well together. He continues traveling between the two worlds, and making money from the nobles, while also starting to study magic with Peeps, excited to learn the teleportation spell. His plan was to learn gradually, but the next day, He had a problem when he tried to use a fire spell during his lunch break. When he tells this to Peeps, he says that Sasaki has more affinity than he expected, because it's really difficult to cast magic for the first time. As they walk through the city, they come across an employee named French, who is being expelled from the restaurant where he works. Sasaki approaches him to find out what happened, and after getting the details, Sasaki learns that he's been training to be a great chef since childhood. But his skills attracted the envy of his coworkers, so they falsely accused him of stealing the restaurant's money, just to get him fired. Sasaki notes that he seems like a good professional, and thinking about his situation, he invites him to open a restaurant together, explaining that French will be the manager of the place. Sasaki introduces him to Mark, a noble from a company, and requests the necessary equipment to open the restaurant. They finally open the establishment in a noble location of the main village, and upon receiving his first salary, French is moved, determined to give his best for the restaurant. Peeps wonders why Sasaki decided to open the business, so he explains that he thought about making it easier for Peeps, saying French is probably capable of preparing the meat that he wanted to eat. Sasaki notes that he's poor in the other world, and when Peeps asks about his job, he says that things remain the same, and the last time he received a raise was 5 years ago. He continues to practice magic in the other world, and although he made a lot of progress, he was having trouble mastering teleportation magic. Returning to his world, Peeps remembers that the nobles enjoy hunting in their free time, so they decide to buy some products to assist them. He starts by buying a pair of binoculars, and soon fills the cart with more items like a Swiss Army knife. Sasaki sells the items to the nobles, and soon after, the lord of the city decides to meet with him. Unlike the other nobles, the lord, Muller, is more cautious in doing business, so Sasaki thinks that he should bring higher quality items when negotiating with him. Muller asks if the products are common on Sasaki's continent, or if they are high quality items. So he explains that these items are special, and are only used by the privileged class of his people. Hearing this, Muller thinks that Sasaki must be an important noble, so he asks Sasaki if he's a person of considerable standing. He's afraid of getting caught lying about being a noble, so he explains he's a craftsman who was brought to the continent after his shipwreck, and his items are samples of things he brought with him. So Muller allows him to sell his products, but Muller must have priority for each sale. He allows Sasaki to enter and leave the mansion as he pleases, and asks him to inform him if he has something that can benefit his people. The two shake hands, and Sasaki achieves his goal of establishing connections with the city's lord. Back in his world, Sasaki realizes that today is Kohai's farewell party. They meet at a restaurant, where Kohai wonders if Sasaki would join his new company, and Sasaki says he can't. Kohai thinks it would have been nice to have him in his company, saying he has been much more vibrant these last few days. On his way home, Sasaki thinks about what Kohai said, but he's interrupted by an ice crystal flying towards him. He notices a man threatening a woman with magic, and even though he finds this weird, he attacks the man with an ice spell. The ice begins to spread on the man's body, and since Sasaki doesn't know how to control the power, he thinks that the man is about to die, but the woman dissolves his ice. Seeing that he also has psychic powers, she asks him if he has a registration. He tries to play dumb, but she insists, and asks how long he has had that ability. He explains that he's had it for just a few days, and she asks him to accompany her, as he wonders if other magic users from Peep's world might have also come to his world. Before accompanying her, he asks to stop by his house, and she suggests bringing clothes, because he'll be spending the night elsewhere. Packing his bag, Peeps warns him that she doesn't seem to have much mana, and since she refers to magic as something psychic, Peeps thinks that her powers must be different from the magic of his world. Leaving the house with Peeps, Sasaki meets his neighbor, who tells him that she wants to talk to him. But Sasaki says he's in a hurry, so she agrees to talk another time. Sasaki meets the girl and apologizes for the delay, saying he will take his pet with him. She reveals that her name is Hashizaki, and she thanks him for saving her. Along the way, she explains that psychics are like mages, with powers that appear spontaneously, and only 1 in 100,000 manifests these psychic abilities. But once someone's ability manifests, it never changes, saying a psychic can only have one power. Hashizaki explains that she can manipulate water and alter its temperature. She informs him that many of these abilities are dangerous, so people often use them to commit crimes, revealing that the man who attacked her is a criminal. Hashizaki adds that her job is to exterminate such people, and she reveals that when the psychic manifestation occurs for the first time, they're required to register with the supervising authority in Japan. This is a secret organization, and few people in the country know about its existence. Upon arriving at a large building, Hashizaki tells Sasaki that he will be working there, and that he will receive all the details of the job during his training. She asks him to demonstrate his power, and Sasaki decides to show only one spell to not raise suspicions. Seeing that he can create ice out of nothing, she becomes excited, because she can control water, but not create it, thinking their abilities work well together. He's worried about partnering with a workaholic, and tries to say that he's not the adventurous type, but Hashizaki reminds him that they can earn a lot of money if they work hard. He remembers his commitments, and wants to ask Peeps to be transferred to the other world, but he's worried that the place might be surrounded by cameras. So he decides to go outside, and Peeps informs him that they're being followed. Sasaki thinks about notifying his contacts in the other world about his delay, and Peeps tells him that an hour in his world is just a few minutes there, so he could go there while the man thinks he went to the bathroom. They enter the other world, where Sasaki informs Mark that it will take longer for the next negotiation, and he's able to give French his salary. Back to Japan, Hashizaki knocks on his door at 6 in the morning, saying they have a mission. She asks him to accompany her, but he tries to close the door slowly. She insists, and he explains that he wants to speak with his supervisor before leaving the department. At that moment, the director calls Hashizaki's attention, and he's happy to see her excited about the work, but asks her not to involve a rookie in it. He introduces himself as Akutsu, and tells Sasaki that he will undergo training. Akutsu gives him a smartphone, telling him to always keep it close, because through this phone, he will be notified of emergency missions. This slightly worries Sasaki, because he could no longer relax, but he plans to circumvent this by leaving his cell phone in the other world, since they can't track him without GPS. Sasaki undergoes a series of medical tests, and receives his training, as he's instructed to never speak of the company to any outsiders under any circumstances. Sasaki asks his supervisor about Hashizaki, since he's probably going to be paired up with her in the field, due to the high compatibility of their powers, but the supervisor just wishes him luck in dealing with her. At the end of the training, he receives 1 million yen, and he decides to use the money to buy more items for resale. When he returns home, the young girl gives him cookies, but soon her image as a cute college girl falls apart, and she reveals herself to be a yandere psychopath, asking if he's dating Hashizaki. He denies this, saying she's just his supervisor, but he doesn't want to talk much about his company, so Sasaki bids her farewell, and quickly enters his house. Peeps is strangely agitated, and Sasaki calls him for a walk. On the street, Peeps informs him that someone entered his house during the day and installed a device, so Sasaki thinks that they might have installed a camera or listening device to monitor him. As he returns home, he removes the device and speaks to Akutsu on the phone, telling them not to install more devices in his house. However, Akutsu reveals that this was a test conducted with new members of the organization, and informs Sasaki that he passed. Akutsu explains that the company needs loyal and competent agents, and he ends the call, as Peeps suggests that they should be cautious around him. Sasaki decides to rest, but when he lies down, he realizes that he will struggle to achieve his goal, which is to live a peaceful life in the other world. Meanwhile, Akutsu examines Sasaki's registration information, thinking he will be extremely useful to the organization. In the other world, Peeps and Sasaki are practicing magic. Peeps is impressed with Sasaki's progress, because he didn't expect him to learn intermediate spells so easily. Sasaki doesn't find it that impressive, and suggests it's because of the power that Peeps shared with him. But Peeps insists that it's still notable, because in this world, magicians take decades to learn intermediate spells.